My name is Jan Mikula. I'm product manager here in Salsita, and today I will be discussing kind of a design sprint, but not really. Definitely, we will not be discussing any design principles, and frankly, not really talking about design sprint. Uh, I will, or I want to focus really on the principles behind design sprint because I think they can be applied uh, beyond design sprint, sort of in everyday life, everyday working life, where you need to discuss something with your colleagues and resolve issues. And I think there are many principles that you can be inspired that we are using in design sprint. Design sprint. For those of you that doesn't know this methodology, it's like about in a few days, kind of prototyping some idea like feature, and basically it's a structured process where the first day you are discussing things, you identifying the problems and goals that you want to solve. Then you check some inspiration. Then you sketch the solution. Then or sketch a different solution, and then you kind of identify the best elements across all those ideas, and yeah, then you as a group you put together the solution, and the third day you prototype it and then you test it. But as I said, like for me, it's not really this presentation shouldn't be about the design spin, but more broadly, that so you can apply it to other aspects of your working life. So first of all, whenever you are dealing with some problem, you're discussing whatever issue with your colleagues, it's first good to kind of understand what you are discussing and why. So, in the design sprint, you start with sort of general discussion where everyone involved can express their opinions. And what you do in background is what we call how might we cars, where you're basically trying to identifying the problems, the challenges in that topic, and basically, uh, then you put them together, organize it in a way that the similar things are in one group. And the goal is to actually let people express all the problems around that topic, uh, and uh, and then which, by the way, especially imagine that it's some heated discussion, right? Like in our case, remember the great discussion about billable brown bags, right? Like there is a long thread where people were, screaming something. But like if you use this approach, right? Like what would happen first? Like first people would say, okay, what's really bothering them? What is the problem? Probably it started by somebody saying, oh, some people are sort of billing it under Salsita and somebody are not. So my problem is that we are inconsistent, right? Then somebody starts saying, okay, we don't want to turn Salsita into corporate, right? So we want to still have a company that is, friendly and so on. Another problem. Uh, Another person started to solving, okay, uh, we need to be profitable, right? So every hour that we can bill, it's actually improving our profitability. Those are problems, different problems. I think we all agree that there are problems. Probably each of us has sort of different, let's say, weight on what is the important problem, what is not. But the discussion would definitely benefit if you would start. Okay, so what problem are we solving? And if you in the beginning allow people express their opinions, it kind of lower the stress because they could express what they want, and then the rest of the discussion is more reasonable. So the next step is, okay, we hear a bunch of problems, and now it's a good time to kind of decide what problem are we solving. In the brown bag idea, what are we solving, right? Like there are completely different issues, so we should first decide what we should be focusing on. The trouble is that obviously everyone has different opinion. So what design sprints kind of suggest is first try to get general vibe. So you can imagine it as a voting where people identify, okay, this is the most important problem for me. This is maybe second most important problem for me. And what you get is some kind of heat map. Obviously, you know, it's companies are like not really sort of like democratic, or the democratic process is not always the best. Still, there is somebody who kind of have the most skin in the game. Basically, if we decide something, that person will sort of bear the consequences. So what Design Sprint is suggesting is there should be somebody that they call decider, right? And the decider is, in our case, usually the client, because the client is paying for it. And if we prepare some wrong solution, he will be the one who is bearing the consequences. But the interesting thing is that Design Sprint suggests first that everyone in the group, even those that are not bearing the consequences of the decision, are expressing their opinion, and then the final decision is done by the decider. And trust me that if somebody, let's say the decision maker is completely sort of had different opinion than the rest of the group, still he will be, or she will be, very influenced by that, because usually we tends to basically try to create some kind of common understanding, and we don't want to fight, right? So this is a nice way how to kind of get the group into aligning on the goal, but still that there is still somebody who will actually take responsibility for the decision. When we have the target, it's very important, because first, again, it aligns everyone, and second, it simplifies very much the further discussion. If you know what you are solving, then it's easier to get the solution. There is a next part. So very often, for people, naturally, it's way easier to express what is the solution rather than what is the problem. Example, definitely not in my case, but in someone's case, for example, the spouse, come home and it's like cranky and say, stop annoying me with that, or stop doing that. It's annoying, right? And basically, okay, so that's the solution. I should stop doing that. But what is the problem, right? And they sometimes don't know, and it could be that she had a bad day in her job. Boss were screaming at her, whatever, right? But that's the original problem, and it's really bad idea if you mix the discussion where you are discussing at the same time the problem and the solution. So it's definitely good to have like sort of great wall between the problem and solution. Should be definitely great, even greater than the one between US and Mexico. But even better solution is kind of split the discussion between problem and solution by having discussion about some kind of inspiration, right? Like, and why is that important? Because again, as I said, it's way easier for people to communicate solution rather than problem. And very often people comes to the discussion with solution already in mind. And basically that complicates things, because then you are sort of biased towards the solution. You are trying pushing hard and hard and to sort of promote your solution. But the goal is actually kind of sort of that you forget on your solution, because then we are starting with blank sheet, and then it's way easier to actually get to the solution, which is the best one. So this kind of exercise where we first, before we jump to discussing particular solution, you say, hey, let's check how other companies are doing it, or let's check something, or I don't know, something, doesn't matter what. But the point is that you kind of really put something in the middle between the discussion about problem and discussion about the solution. And if you see the inspiration, the nice thing is that hopefully you will be more open-minded, but you see other perspective, and that's a great start for discussing the solution. So in the design sprint, the sort of next step is that each individual that is participating in the discussion, they come up with their own solution on their own without any discussion. And the goal is that actually people shouldn't, before they before they show their solution, they shouldn't be influenced by sort of some kind of group thinking, because usually in the group there is somebody sort of more stronger personality wise, so it's very easy then that the whole group will sort of think as that the strongest person. So really the design sprint is saying, okay, no, first each person will, we know what problem are we solving, so what's your ideal solution for that? So people come up with different solution, different concept. The other nice thing about it is that they are forced to come up with holistic solution, because frankly, coming up sort of with random ideas, particular ideas, it's very, very easy. Way harder is that you need to kind of come up with many ideas, put them together, and they need to somehow logically be consistent, and that's way harder job. And design sprint force you to do that. When you have all those different concepts, it also allows the whole group to understand different trade-offs, right? Like the concept A, it's great, but this part, it's really will hurting us in that area, and the concept B, it has completely different trade-offs, and it's really useful to know like what are the trade-offs, because it again kind of allows you to really understand what we are trying to solve and what is important versus what is not. Again, the same idea as with problems, right? Like remember the second slide where basically we have list of problems and then we voted for them to kind of get the idea in the room, like who is thinking what is the best or most important problem. So here we are trying to get everyone's ideas about what is the best solution, or particularly what specific ideas in those concepts are best for them. One important aspect of this is that, first of all, usually there is no one sort of single best concept that we just take and use it. Usually it's like, okay, there are good parts and bad parts, and this will help us identify the good parts and bad parts. The second important aspect is, because people are again voting for specific ideas, it kind of fighting again this idea, okay, this is my concept, right? Because it's cooperation, right? Okay, we will take a couple of pieces from your solution and a couple of pieces from the other person solution, and that way it's our solution together, which is very, let's say, cooperative and very useful for coming to some conclusion. Very often, I already discussed that, right? Like we coming up with solution is very natural for us, and very often, even before the discussion starts, we already have the solution in mind. But so we are, I would say, we as a human beings are very solution oriented, and that very often is leading to the situation where during discussing the different solutions, we are completely sidetracked, right? Like we are discussing everything. And so it's good at some point to say, okay, let's calm down. We have many ideas, but we should again reiterate, okay, what we are trying to solve. The best way how to look at it is, okay, if we prepare a solution, how the success of that solution looks like, and somehow try to at least outline basically sort of the basic structure of that solution. So you can imagine that if we are collaborating on some document, okay, we should probably outline what kind of section the document should have, and the details we can discuss later. But it is good to have to start building sort of common understanding what the common solution looks like. So maybe you notice, like, I would say, two general principles in the design sprint. Like, first of all, you start with a problem, you explore it, and then you sort of prioritize which problem is the most important one, and then, sorry, and then you have a solution. Then again, you explore many different solutions, and then you prioritize the best one. Another important, let's say, general principle is that always, whenever the discussion starts, like each person should express their own ideas. Then you discuss it in a step two. You discuss it in a group. Each express opinions about all the other ideas, and then as a separate step, you do the final decision. You are not that way. You are kind of protecting the discussion about that. In the discussion, somebody is really pushing their idea and not really discussing the idea. So if you sort of separate those things, that I'm expressing the idea, discussing the idea, and then deciding, the discussion is way more structured and way more, let's say, friendly and to the point. The last step in, or last two steps in the design sprint is that you come up with some solution, you prototype it, you test it, and if you have, you get some feedback, and then you iterate on that solution. And again, very often in the discussion, it's like, okay, so we have the solution, and it will be that way forever. But I would say that it's actually good to basically have this kind of a mindset. Okay, let's try this. Let's try to get feedback from people, other people that weren't involved in that discussion, and based on that, we can then iterate on it. And it has this nice effect that if nothing is sort of set in stone, even people that during the discussion they disagree with, for example, the problems, or more likely with some specific solution that the group in the end choose, they are more likely to comment, because they know, okay, we will be testing it, and let's see. So even they are sort of incentivized to kind of help with this solution that they disagreed with, test it, and find out quickly that the solution is wrong, and maybe then the group will choose the solution that they come up with. So this is another sort of principles how to kind of get the group aligned. So that's pretty much it. I know that it wasn't really about the design sprint, but yeah, those are the main ideas. Is basically, you shouldn't kind of rush the discussion and have sort of this chaotic discussion where you discuss everything, solution, problems, everything in some really chaotic way. But you should really, even if you have 10 minutes and you need to solve something, you should always go step by step. Identify the problems, get inspiration for some solution, go through some solution, discuss them, choose the best one, and then test it if it's the right solution. So thanks, everyone.